Welcome back to the deep dive. We cut through the noise to bring you some really compelling insights.
Glad to be here.
And today, oh boy, we've got a story that's, well, it's truly mind-blowing. It's about human toughness, resilience against, seemingly impossible odds.
Mm-hmm.
Our source material for this deep dive is excerpts from Against All Odds, Marathon Woman's Triumph.
Right.
And our mission, really, is to unpack this incredible journey. We're talking about a woman who was told point blank she'd never walk again.
Never walk again.
And now she runs marathons. It's just, it's going to be a fascinating look at overcoming what most of us would think is, well, utterly impossible.
Yeah.
That core statement from the source, it really just grabs you, doesn't it? She was told she'd never walk again. Now she runs marathons.
It really does. And what's so interesting, I think, is how the source material frames it. It's not just presented as like a medical recovery story.
Okay.
It's framed as a reclamation of body and spirit.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It really sets the stage for exploring what the storyline calls her grit and grace.
Grit and grace, I like that.
Mm-hmm. It challenges our whole idea of what's even possible after a devastating accident like that. It goes way beyond just physical rehab.
Okay, so let's get into that. The headline's powerful, sure. But according to the book, what did those first days, those really dark days, actually look like for her? What was that initial prognosis?
Well, the excerpts, they start with a pretty stark image, a multi-car pile-up, rain-slick highway. You get the picture. And her immediate situation.
Right.
The doctors were apparently very clear, quite unsparing, a complete spinal cord injury, C5, C6 level.
C5, C6.
And prognosis was just devastating. They told her flat out, you'll never regain function below the neck, never walk again.
God, that's...
Yeah, and the book really emphasizes that initial period, just profound despair. Describes her as confined within her own body, a prisoner of circumstance.
Just unimaginable. So when the source talks about grit, how did that even begin to show up when the outlook was that bleak? It sounds like it had to be more than just, being stubborn.
Oh, absolutely. The author describes this grit as like an unwavering mental discipline. This is even before any significant physical progress happened.
So right from the start.
Pretty much.
Sure.
For the first 6 months, mostly in a wheelchair, she meticulously documented everything. Every tiny sensation, any little twitch, she noted it down.
Wow.
And the source highlights how she spent hours, just hours, visualizing herself walking, moving, running, even when the doctors were still giving her this incredibly bleak outlook.
So active visualization.
Exactly. And the book argues this wasn't just like passive wishing. It credits this relentless mental rehearsal with actually stimulating her earliest neural pathways before the really intensive targeted physical therapy even kicked in.
Okay, so that's fascinating. It wasn't just the physical therapy, which obviously must have been intense, but this huge mental component was sort of laying the groundwork. Was there a specific moment, like a breakthrough or a turning point that shifted things, especially if the medical folks were still skeptical?
Yes, there was. And the source details it quite beautifully, actually. It talks about her eventually discovering something the book calls patterned muscle activation.
Patterned muscle activation, what's that involve?
It involved intensely visualizing the movement, like really focusing on the specific neural pathways she wanted to fire, even when there was zero physical response initially.
Okay.
Now, the medical team, at first, they kind of dismissed it, maybe wishful thinking,
Understandable, I guess, from their perspective.
Right. But the book highlights how this consistent mental effort combined with the targeted PT, it began to wake up these seemingly dormant pathways.
So the brain actually started changing.
Exactly. It's a really powerful example of neuroplasticity in action. The brain's incredible ability to rewire itself. That was a critical turning point where her mind literally started pushing her body to reconnect.
That is just truly fascinating. So, okay. She's defying the odds, she's walking again, which is already an incredible achievement, right?
Monumental.
But then, the jump to marathons, that feels like that's a whole different universe of physical defiance. What drove her to that extreme? It couldn't have just been about walking normally.
No, and the source explains it as this profound need she had to redefine impossible for herself, again and again.
Keep pushing a boundary.
Exactly. Once she could walk without assistance, she wasn't just content with, regaining basic function. The book describes her seeing a marathon on TV one day. and having this almost visceral reaction. There's a specific passage detailing her thought process, something like, if I can walk, why can't I run? And if I can run, why not run that?
Wow, so it wasn't about competition.
Less about competing against others, it seems, and more about pushing the limits, the perceived limits, of her own restored body and spirit.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Training for a marathon is brutal for anyone.
Grueling.
Let alone someone with her history. Someone told they'd never walk. What specific challenges does the book talk about during that training, and how did that grit and grace idea play out during this incredibly tough phase?
Oh, the excerpts are pretty clear about the brutal toll it took on her body, her previously injured body.
I can only imagine.
Chronic pain, constant exhaustion, the always present risk of re-injury. That grit part, that was showing up every single day, pushing through physical and mental barriers that, frankly, most people couldn't even comprehend.
Just relentless.
Absolutely. But then there's the grace element. And as the author frames it, that was just as vital.
Okay, how so? Grace in what way?
It wasn't about like elegant movement or form. It was about her ability to find this inner peace amidst the struggle.
Okay. Inner grace.
Yes. The source mentions she often trained alone, really early mornings. And she used that solitude to practice what she called meditative running.
Meditative running.
Yeah. Where the physical act of running became almost a spiritual affirmation for her. A way to move beyond the pain, connect with her restored capabilities. She learned to listen to her body, not just constantly push it past its breaking point, finding that balance.
Grit and grace. It really makes sense now.
It does.
So let's wrap this up, this deep dive into the excerpts from Against All Odds, Marathon Woman's Triumph. It really reveals the extraordinary power of the human spirit, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
To reclaim not just the body, but the spirit too, even after something so utterly devastating. That blend you mentioned, the grit and grace, it wasn't just a catchy phrase in the storyline. It feels like it was truly the core of her incredible, arduous journey.
And I think this raises a really important question for you listening right now. What does this story actually reveal about our own perceived limits?
Good question.
How does her journey, from being told she'd never walk again, all the way to running marathons?
Yeah.
How does that challenge our understanding of what physical and mental barriers really are? For any of us, it really makes you think about the difference between a doctor's prognosis and someone's actual potential, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So the final thought to leave you with is this. What can we learn from a story of such profound physical and really spiritual reclamation? And maybe more importantly, how might we apply some of that understanding to our own challenges, whether they feel large or small?
Something definitely worth considering.
Definitely. Something to mull over long after this deep dive is done.